The stars above the Andromeda sector were cold and silent, stretching endlessly like an ocean of black glass. On the surface of the Yulari homeworld, cities once vibrant with light and laughter now lay in ruins. Smoke curled from shattered buildings and the ground shook under the weight of distant explosions. The Yulari people, a fragile race with translucent skin and luminous eyes, huddled together in fear. Their voices trembled as they whispered stories of families lost, homes burned, and futures stolen. Their world had been raided by a ruthless alien armada known as the Clith, who took everything they desired and left only death behind. In their desperation, the Yulari leaders gathered in the last standing council chamber, its walls scorched and crumbling. The youngest among them, a girl named Liara, spoke first, her voice small but filled with urgency. "We cannot survive this war. Our people are dying and no help comes. We need someone stronger than us, someone who can save us." The elders exchanged nervous glances. Hope had been a dangerous thing for their kind, something that often turned to despair. But now they had no choice. The council reached a unanimous decision. They would send a call into the depths of the galaxy, beyond the reach of the Clith, to a race they had only heard about in myths and ancient stories: humans. Legend said humans were strange creatures, unpredictable and fearless. They had survived countless hardships on their own planet, overcome enemies larger and stronger than themselves, and built civilizations that reached for the stars. The Yulari had watched humans from afar for decades, learning of their courage and their capacity to endure pain without surrender. To the Yulari, humans seemed almost divine, beings of pure strength and unshakable will. Liara's hands shook as she activated the ancient transmitter, an object older than their civilization, buried beneath layers of stone and ruin. She pressed the final button, sending a desperate, trembling message across light years. "We are at the edge of extinction. We beg for your aid, please. Send angels to save us." Even as the words left her lips, Liara felt a pang of doubt. Angels were not real. The Yulari had only heard stories, legends meant to inspire hope in children, but they had no other choice. Humanity was their last hope, the only force in the galaxy that might hear their plea and respond. Weeks passed. The Yulari watched the stars every night, hoping for a sign. Their patience was tested as the Clith continued their attacks, burning farms, stealing children, and enslaving those who survived. Fear became a constant companion, wrapping itself around every heart and mind. Liara often stayed awake, staring at the dark sky, imagining what these angels might look like. She pictured beings of light, shining and untouchable, descending from the heavens to protect them. Then, one quiet night, it happened. A flash of light streaked across the sky, brighter than 1,000 suns. It was not a meteor nor a weapon, it was a ship, massive and sleek, gliding silently into orbit. The Yulari stared, mouths open, as more ships followed, each one larger than the tallest tower in their ruined cities. The air vibrated with energy, and the ground trembled as the fleet aligned above their planet. Inside the largest ship, Captain Alara Kane observed the transmission from the Yulari. She was tall and imposing, her armor blackened from battles in distant galaxies, yet her eyes held a calm, calculating intelligence. She listened to their plea, her face unreadable. "Angels," she thought. "Humans are no angels. We are flawed, violent, unpredictable. But we are humans. That will have to be enough." Alara's crew prepared for descent. Weapons were checked, shields calibrated, and battle plans reviewed. Yet beneath their readiness was a quiet, unspoken understanding. They were not here to be saviors in the angelic sense. They were here to fight, to protect, and if necessary, to unleash their own ferocity on those who threatened the helpless. Humans were known for many things, but mercy and resilience were among their strongest traits. And in the dark silence of space, these traits could be as terrifying as any weapon. As the fleet pierced the atmosphere of the Yulari homeworld, fire and wind swept across the desolate lands below. The Yulari watched in awe and disbelief, unsure whether they were witnessing salvation or doom. The humans were coming not as angels of light, but as warriors forged by countless battles, shaped by hardship and survival. Liara's heart pounded in her chest. Fear mingled with hope, and for the first time in years she allowed herself to imagine a future where her people might survive. The humans would decide the fate of their world, and whatever came next, there was no turning back. In that moment, amidst the smoke, rubble, and trembling hearts, one truth became clear. Help had arrived. But it was nothing like the Yulari had imagined. Humanity had come not as angels but as humans, ready to unleash everything they had to protect the helpless. And that might just be enough. The Yulari watched the sky with wide, trembling eyes as the human fleet descended. Ships, massive and sleek, moved like shadows over the ruined cities, their engines humming a low, powerful song that seemed almost alive. Each vessel radiated strength, not the fragile beauty of angels they had imagined, but a fierce, unrelenting force that could crush mountains and scatter armies. From the bridge of the largest ship, Captain Alara Kane surveyed the planet below. She noted every crater, every damaged building, every terrified Yulari still hiding in the ruins. "Deploy teams," she ordered calmly. "Move fast. Protect the civilians. Eliminate threats immediately." Her voice carried authority without anger. Every word was precise, every instruction deliberate. The humans did not descend with soft light or gentle wings. They arrived like storms. Dropships cut through the clouds, kicking up dust and debris. Soldiers clad in black armor with faint glowing lines leaped into the city streets. Their movements were swift, practiced, and almost terrifying in their precision. Weapons flashed in the darkness as raiders, aliens who had enslaved the Yulari, screamed in panic. To the Yulari, it was chaos. Buildings shook as human machines unleashed blasts of energy that tore through the Clith forces. Smoke and fire filled the air, but the humans moved carefully, avoiding areas where the civilians hid. Liara gasped as a squad of humans carried frightened children to safety while simultaneously defending them from attackers. She had expected angels to bring peace, but what she saw instead was power, and yet power controlled with purpose. Captain Kane moved through the streets herself, her presence commanding attention without a word. She confronted raiders who tried to regroup. Her movements were like a predator, quick, efficient, and deadly, but she never struck recklessly. Every attack was precise, calculated to neutralize threats without unnecessary destruction. The Yulari had never seen a force so terrifying yet so protective. A young Yulari man, Kale, hid behind a ruined wall, his hands over his mouth to stifle his cries. He whispered to Liara, "They are monsters, but they are saving us." She nodded, unable to find words. Monsters, yes. Humans were terrifying, but they were also saving lives. The paradox was hard to understand, yet impossible to ignore. Hours passed, and slowly the tide of battle turned. The Clith, once confident and cruel, began to retreat. Human squads hunted them with relentless precision. No mercy was wasted on the invaders, and yet none was wasted on the innocent either. The Yulari realized something they had never imagined. Humans did not fight for glory or conquest. They fought for protection, for survival, for others. When the battle finally ended, silence fell across the city. Smoke rose in thin tendrils from the ruins, and the Yulari stepped cautiously into the streets. They found humans standing among the debris, exhausted but alert, scanning for danger. Children clung to the humans' legs, crying and laughing at the same time. Adults stared, unsure whether to run, bow, or cry. Captain Kane approached the Yulari leaders. She did not kneel. She did not speak of angels. "We are not angels," she said simply, her voice steady and calm. "We are humans. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We fight like demons if we must, but always for the helpless." The Yulari stared at her in silence. Her words were simple, yet they carried weight. In that moment, they understood something deeper than legend or myth. Angels were imagined, ethereal beings of light. Humans were real, flawed, terrifying, and yet capable of a kind of courage and selflessness that the Yulari could barely comprehend. Liara stepped forward, her small hand trembling as she reached toward Captain Kane. Thank you," she whispered. We thought we needed angels. But maybe we need humans instead." Kane's gaze softened, and for the first time she allowed a small smile. "You do not need angels," she said. "You need survivors. And humans. We are survivors." The Yulari began to understand that the human's presence was not about magic or divinity. It was about determination, skill, and heart. Each human soldier carried not only weapons but the will to endure, to fight, and to protect. The Yulari had believed salvation came wrapped in light, but now they saw it came wrapped in flesh and willpower, in strength born of hardship and battles fought across countless stars. As night fell, the humans continued their patrols, securing the city and searching for any remaining threats. The Yulari, exhausted and awed, followed them cautiously. They had come expecting angels, beings untouchable and serene. Instead, They had been given something far more real. Humans, terrifying in their power, yet bound by a code stronger than any celestial myth. For the first time in years, the Yulari allowed themselves to hope. Humanity had arrived, not as saviors from myth but as warriors from reality, and perhaps for the first time, they might survive. The morning after the humans' arrival, the Yulari stepped out cautiously from the shadows of their ruined city. The streets were still littered with debris, and the acrid smell of smoke lingered in the air. Yet despite the destruction, there was a sense of safety, a fragile thread of hope weaving through the devastation. Humans moved among them, their presence firm and steady, their weapons ever ready but held with control. Liara walked beside Kale, both of them stunned by what they were witnessing. Children ran alongside human soldiers, laughing as they learned how to climb rubble and avoid hazards. Adults followed cautiously, watching humans tend to the wounded and rebuild what they could. Every action carried purpose. Humans were fierce, yes, but they were also careful. Every strike, every gesture, was calculated to save, not destroy. Captain Alara Kane stood on a raised platform in the center of the city, watching her squads coordinate with quiet authority. Her armor, scratched and scorched from battle, gleamed faintly in the morning light. She did not shout or wave her arms dramatically. She simply commanded, and her words moved people like a ripple across water. Humans were not loud or angelic, they were focused. They were precise. They were terrifying in their discipline. Kale whispered to Liara, his voice trembling. I thought they were monsters. But the way they move, the way they protect us, I don't understand it. It's like, they fight like demons, but they are not evil. Liara nodded. I think that's what makes them human, she said softly. They are strong, they are fierce. But they care. The Yulari began to notice more. Humans never rested unnecessarily. Soldiers took shifts, patrolled the city, and assisted in rebuilding. They trained the Yulari in how to defend themselves, teaching them strategies, combat techniques, and survival skills. Yet despite their power, humans were patient. They did not mock or belittle the Yulari for their fear or weakness. Instead, they guided, corrected, and encouraged. Liara watched as a human soldier carried a wounded Yulari child from the rubble. His armor was black, his movements sharp, but his hands were gentle. The child clutched his neck, crying and shivering, yet the human whispered calmly, reassuringly, until the child's tears subsided. The Yulari had never seen such strength combined with care. They had dreamed of angels bringing salvation, but humans were showing them something far more powerful. Protection born of will, courage, and heart. By midday, the Yulari leaders gathered again, this time not in fear but in amazement. Elder Valen, his translucent skin almost glowing in the sunlight, spoke first. I do not understand them, he admitted. They are terrifying in battle, stronger than anything we have ever faced. Yet they do not harm the innocent. They are different. Captain Kane stepped forward, her gaze calm but unwavering. We are not different in the way you think, she said. We are humans. We endure, we fight, and we protect. That is what makes us dangerous. But that is also what makes us strong. We are not angels. We are something more, because we choose who we fight for, and we do not abandon those who cannot fight for themselves. The Yulari looked at each other, slowly understanding. Angels were symbols, beings of myth, untouchable and untiring. Humans were real, flawed, and terrifying, but every flaw carried purpose. Every strike carried intention. Humanity's demons, as they called them, were the very essence of survival and protection. They were terrifying because they were willing to do what others could not. Liara felt a stirring in her chest she had never felt before. Fear mingled with awe, hope intertwined with wonder. These humans were no angels, but in their own terrifying way, they had become the guardians the Yulari had prayed for. By evening, the city was quieter. Humans patrolled the streets, rebuilt homes, and tended to the injured. The Yulari began to step forward, no longer hiding entirely, but observing, learning, and participating where they could. Slowly, cautiously, they began to reclaim a sense of life in their city. Kale turned to Liara, eyes wide. Do you think we could survive this? Liara smiled faintly, a rare warmth crossing her features. If humans are here, maybe we can survive anything. Captain Kane stood on the platform once more, looking at the recovering city. Her eyes were tired yet resolute. She did not seek recognition or thanks. Her job was not to be worshipped. It was to fight, to endure, and to protect. Humanity's way was simple but profound. Survival through strength and salvation through action. That night, as the stars glimmered above, the Yulari understood the truth. Angels were dreams. Humans were real. And humans could unleash demons, yes, but demons who fought for life, hope, and the helpless. For the first time, the Yulari allowed themselves to imagine a future free from fear. And humanity, fierce and terrifying as ever, stood ready to guide them toward it. Weeks passed since humanity had arrived. The Yulari cities, though still scarred from war, were slowly being rebuilt. Children laughed as they ran through cleared streets, and adults learned to tend to farms and markets once more. Human soldiers continued their watch, patrolling with careful precision, teaching the Yulari to defend themselves while protecting the innocent. But hope is fragile, and fear has a way of growing quietly in the hearts of the desperate. Some Yulari, even among their leaders, began to whisper doubts. They remembered centuries of oppression and loss. Can we really trust them? One elder asked during a council meeting. They are powerful. Too powerful. What if their protection is only the first step to domination? Liara overheard the whispers and felt a shiver run down her spine. She had seen the humans fight, seen them risk their lives to protect her people, yet the seeds of doubt had been planted. Not all Yulari were ready to accept help, no matter how selfless it seemed. Late one night, a small faction of Yulari decided to act. They crept toward the human command center, believing that perhaps if they struck first, they could seize control of the humans' power for themselves. Their plan was not born of malice but fear. Fear of being dominated, fear of losing autonomy, fear of the unknown. Captain Ilara Kane had anticipated such uncertainty. She moved silently through the darkened corridors of the command center, her instincts sharp. When the intruders attempted to sabotage the systems, alarms rang instantly, and the humans surrounded the traitorous Yulari in seconds. The confrontation was tense and frightening. The Yulari trembled, expecting wrath or punishment, perhaps even death. They had underestimated the humans' response. Yet what happened next was not what they imagined. Ilara Kane's voice cut through the darkness, calm and unyielding. "We do not forgive betrayal lightly," she said. Her eyes, sharp as knives, scanned each one of the Yulari. "But we are not here to destroy you. You made a choice born of fear, not malice. Learn from it, do better. Protect your people. This is your responsibility now, not ours." No human raised a weapon unnecessarily. No one struck the Yulari who had acted out of fear. But the message was clear. Humanity's protection came with rules, and treachery would not be tolerated. The humans' power was not just physical, it was moral, disciplined, and terrifying in its clarity. The surviving Yulari were shaken. They had thought humans were monsters in disguise, beings who might conquer them once the Clith were gone. Instead, they found themselves facing beings whose strength was paired with unwavering principle. The humans had the capacity to annihilate them, yes, but chose restraint because their cause was just. Liara, her hands trembling, approached Captain Kane after the incident. Why do you hold back? You could have destroyed them," she whispered. Kane looked at her, her gaze steady. "Because we fight for life, not power," she said simply. "We unleash our demons when necessary, but only to protect. Humans are not gods, not angels. We are accountable for our actions. That is what separates us from monsters." The words sank into the hearts of the Yulari. Slowly they began to understand. Humans did not act out of fear or selfishness. They acted out of choice, out of duty, out of a willingness to endure pain and chaos to protect others. That was their strength. That was their truth. Yet even with understanding, fear lingered. The Yulari realized that trust would take time. Humans were terrifying, yes, but terrifying in a different way than the Clith. Their ferocity was deliberate, controlled, and purposeful. It was not fear itself, it was the promise of protection through overwhelming force. The betrayal had taught a lesson. Humanity's protection was not free, and it was not blind. It demanded respect, responsibility, and courage from those it saved. The Yulari would have to rise to meet that standard, or risk losing the very salvation they had begged for. As the night settled over the recovering city, the humans resumed their watch. Their presence was constant, unyielding, and calm. Liara gazed at the soldiers, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and awe. She realized that humans were not the angels she had imagined. They were something more, something alive, fierce, and real, and the Yulari for the first time felt the weight of their own choices. Survival was no longer just a matter of luck. It was a matter of courage, trust, and learning to live alongside humans, beings who could unleash demons in the name of life, and in doing so give hope to a broken world. That night, as stars glittered faintly over the scarred land, Liara whispered to Kale, "We thought we wanted angels, but maybe humans are stronger. Stronger than anything we have ever imagined." Kale nodded, staring at the horizon where the human fleet glimmered. "They are terrifying," he said, "but maybe we are ready to follow them now." For the first time, the Yalari felt that survival was possible, not through myths, not through prayer, but through the terrifying, powerful, and unwavering humanity that had arrived to fight for them. The days following the betrayal were tense, but slowly the Yalari began to understand humanity in ways they never had before. Where fear had once filled their hearts, awe and respect now took root. Humans moved among them, teaching, protecting, and rebuilding, yet always with an unmistakable calm that carried authority. Every action, no matter how small, revealed a depth of courage and compassion that the Yalari had never imagined. Liara walked alongside Captain Alara Kane as the humans organized the city's defenses. Children peeked around corners, watching the humans' movements with fascination. They had stopped seeing them as monsters or gods. Humans were something far more complicated and far more powerful. Liara's heart swelled as she noticed the way the soldiers paused to lift debris off a trapped Yalari, or gently guided frightened civilians to safety. They fought like demons, yes, but demons who protected instead of destroyed. Elder Valen approached Kane, his translucent skin reflecting the morning sun. We thought we wanted angels," he admitted, his voice trembling. "But in humans, you are something else. We do not understand you fully, yet we feel your strength. Your presence is alive, terrifying, and yet comforting." Kane studied him silently for a moment, then nodded. "We are not angels," she said. "We are humans. We endure pain, face death, and make impossible choices because someone must. Our demons, the things we unleash when necessary, exist only to protect life. That is our way. That is why we survive." The Yalari looked at one another, realizing the truth in her words. Angels were imagined, distant, untouchable beings. Humans were real. Humans were flawed. Humans were terrifying. But humans were willing to face everything for those who could not defend themselves. They were warriors, yes, but also guardians, teachers, and companions. Humanity's power was not only in their weapons or strength. It was in their will, their courage, and their unwavering dedication to protect life. Hale, watching a squad of humans train young Yalari in defensive tactics, whispered to Liara, "They are frightening. But I've never seen anyone fight like that. They care so much. They are demons and angels at the same time, but real." Liara nodded, understanding him perfectly. The humans' demons were different. They were terrifying because they were willing to do what others could not. But they were not cruel. Their power was disciplined, focused, and purposeful. Every strike, every decision carried weight. The humans chose their battles carefully, and they chose to fight for life, not destruction. That evening, the Yalari gathered in the central square. Children played among the debris, adults whispered in small groups, and the humans patrolled quietly, ever vigilant. The city had begun to breathe again, the first true breath of life it had taken in decades. Liara approached Kane, her voice soft but curious. "Why do you do this?" she asked. "Why do you fight so fiercely for us when we are so small, so fragile?" Kane's eyes softened. "Because we can," she said simply. "Because someone has to. Life is worth protecting, no matter how fragile. We have faced impossible odds on our own worlds, and we know what it means to struggle, to fight to survive. We see that struggle in you, and we choose to fight alongside it. That is what humans do. That is what makes us dangerous and powerful." Liara felt tears prick her eyes. The Yalari had begged for angels, beings who could shield them from all harm. They had expected beings of light, perfect and untouchable. Instead, humanity had arrived, terrifying, flawed, and unstoppable. Humans were demons in battle, angels in their protection, and entirely real. As the sun set over the recovering city, Liara and Kale looked out at the humans organizing the remaining survivors. There was no grand ceremony, no proclamation of triumph. The humans did not need praise or thanks. They simply acted, moving with purpose, calm, and deadly precision. For the first time, the Yulari realized that hope was not a gift from the stars. Hope was something that could be earned, defended, and protected by beings willing to endure fear, danger, and chaos. Humanity had shown them that hope was not an abstract idea. It was alive, moving, breathing, and willing to fight. Elder Valen whispered to Liara, his voice filled with awe. "We cannot understand them completely, but maybe we do not need to. Perhaps it is enough that they fight for us, that they endure for us, that they exist as humans." Liara nodded, a rare smile spreading across her face. "They are not angels," she said. "But maybe they are better, because they are real. And real is stronger than anything we have imagined." As night fell, the stars reflected in the Yulari's luminous eyes. They no longer saw a sky of emptiness and fear. They saw a galaxy where humans, terrifying, flawed, unyielding humans, stood as guardians. The Yulari understood now. Humans were not divine, but they were capable of deeds more extraordinary than any legend. And for the first time, the Yulari truly believed in survival, not because of myths, but because of humans. The Yulari city was alive again. Slowly, carefully, life returned to the streets. Children ran laughing through cleared paths, their small hands brushing against the human soldiers who watched with quiet smiles. Markets reopened under tents, and farmers tilled the soil once more, encouraged by humans who taught them how to protect their crops from future raids. The air smelled faintly of smoke and fresh earth, a strange mix that somehow felt like hope. Humans were everywhere, not as rulers or conquerors, but as guides, protectors, and teachers. They worked side by side with the Yulari, carrying debris, rebuilding homes, and training the people in defense. Their movements were calm, precise, yet powerful, a presence both terrifying and reassuring. Even the smallest Yulari child understood that when humans were near, danger had little chance to strike. Captain Alara Kane oversaw the operations, her sharp eyes constantly scanning the city. She did not speak often, but when she did, her words were measured and clear. "Learn from everything," she said to Liara and Kale one afternoon. "Every obstacle, every mistake, every threat is a lesson. Strength is not just in weapons, it is in mind, heart, and will." The Yulari followed her instructions eagerly. They trained in formations, practiced strategies, and slowly began to understand the human ways of survival. Yet, despite the discipline and focus, the humans remained patient. They guided without force, corrected without anger, and protected without expectation. The Yulari were learning not just to defend themselves, but to hope, to endure, and to rebuild with confidence. Liara watched a small group of humans teaching children how to climb rubble safely. One boy fell, crying, and a human gently lifted him, dusting him off. The child laughed again within moments, encouraged by the soldier's calm patience. Liara felt a lump in her throat. Humans were terrifying in battle, yes, but their power was not just in strength. It was in the courage and care that followed it. Kale approached her, his expression thoughtful. "I never imagined beings could be like this," he said softly. "They fight like demons, but they are so kind. They endure everything for us." "For us," Liara nodded. "We wanted angels, Kale," she said. "But maybe humans are better. They are real. They fight for life, not legends." Even the elders began to see the truth. They worked alongside humans, learning their ways, asking questions, and slowly shedding the fear that had gripped them for centuries. Elder Valen, once cautious and skeptical, now walked openly with human soldiers, discussing strategies and sharing stories of the past. He whispered to Liara, "They are not divine, but they are remarkable. Their courage is endless, their will unbreakable." The days turned into weeks, and the Yulari city transformed. Homes rose from the rubble, farms flourished, and a sense of normalcy slowly returned. Humans remained vigilant, never letting their guard down, yet never forcing the Yulari to bow or submit. They taught by example, showing that strength and mercy could coexist, that power could protect rather than dominate. One evening, as the twin moons rose above the horizon, Liara stood beside Captain Kane, watching children play and families rebuild. "Do you think we can truly survive now?" she asked quietly. Kane's gaze was steady, her expression unreadable yet comforting. "We will survive," she said. "Not because I promise it, not because angels watch over you, but because we are here, and because you are learning to fight alongside us. Survival is not given. It is earned. And humans, we fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. A warmth spread through Liara's chest. She finally understood years past, and the Yulari homeworld had transformed. Where once there had been only ruins and smoke, there were now thriving cities, flowing rivers, and fields of green stretching toward the horizon. The scars of war remained, faint reminders of the suffering that had once gripped the planet. But life had returned with a strength that even the Yulari could not have imagined. The humans had stayed, not as rulers or gods, but as guardians. They patrolled the cities, trained the Yulari to defend themselves, and shared knowledge that allowed the once fragile race to grow stronger. Children played under the watchful eyes of human soldiers, laughing and learning while adults rebuilt homes, farms, and schools with the steady support of their protectors. Humanity's presence was a constant, not intrusive, like a shadow that sheltered and guided. Liara walked through the main square of the rebuilt city, her eyes shining with wonder. Statues of humans had been erected, not to worship them as angels, but to honor their courage, their resilience, and their unwavering protection. One statue depicted Captain Alara Kane standing tall, her armor battered from battles long past, a human child clinging to her side while she raised a hand to shield them from unseen danger. The plaque read, "They came as demons, yet left as heroes. Humanity, our guardians in the dark." Liara touched the edge of the statue, her heart heavy with gratitude. She remembered the first day humans had arrived, cutting through the sky like predators of legend, and how terrified she had been. She remembered the chaos, the fire, the sound of destruction, and then the calm, fierce presence of humans saving lives while striking down the cliff. The memory still sent shivers down her spine, but now it was mixed with hope. Humans had changed her people forever. Kale approached, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We thought we wanted angels," he said softly, "but we got something stronger. We got humans, real terrifying humans. And somehow, that was enough." Liara nodded. "Better than enough," she said. "Humans fight for us, guide us, and protect us. They endure pain, danger, and fear, not for glory, not for power, but because it is the right thing to do. That is stronger than any angel we could have imagined." Captain Kane stood nearby, observing the scene with quiet pride. She did not seek praise. She did not need it. The humans had acted as always for the lives of others. They had fought like demons when necessary. Yet they had built a world where hope could live. Their legacy was not monuments, speeches, or celebrations. It was the lives they had saved, the courage they had inspired, and the peace they had created in the hearts of those who once only knew fear. As night fell, the stars above the city sparkled like diamonds scattered across black velvet. The Yulari looked up and felt a connection to the universe they had never known. They were not alone. Humanity had shown them that even in the vast dark reaches of space, there were beings willing to stand against any threat, to endure any pain, and to protect the helpless with unyielding courage. Liara whispered to Kale, "We will never forget them. They changed us. They gave us hope when we had none. They showed us what it means to survive and to fight for others. That is something no enemy can ever take from us." Kale nodded, eyes bright. "And maybe one day we can become like them. Strong, brave, and willing to protect, not just ourselves, but others too." Across the city, humans continued their quiet work. Soldiers trained the next generation of Yulari defenders. Engineers shared knowledge, and medics tended to the injured or sick. They did not linger for thanks or recognition. Their presence was the reward. The knowledge that their actions had shaped the future, saved lives, and inspired hope in a world that had almost been lost. For the Yulari, humanity's legacy was more than survival. It was courage, resilience, and the lesson that true strength comes from will, heart, and the choice to protect others even when it is difficult, terrifying, or painful. The humans had unleashed their demons when necessary, yet in doing so, they became heroes in the eyes of a once weak and frightened people. Liara looked at the stars one final time that evening, feeling a quiet sense of peace. "We wanted angels," she murmured, "but what we received was humanity, and that is better than anything we could have imagined." And so, under the watchful eyes of their human protectors, the Yulari thrived. Their cities grew, their people flourished, and their hearts learned to hope again. Across the galaxy, humans continued to fight, endure, and protect, leaving a legacy that was not of myth or legend but of real, living courage. Because in the end, humans were not angels. They were something stronger. They were alive, fearless, and willing to unleash their demons for the sake of others. And that truth became a light that would guide the Yulari forever.